It's contract number 4400006953, and it's to spend $8.8 million on this building. To me, this building should be out in the field someplace with schools. But with $8 million, we could buy 50 more counselors. But we're going to spend it on this building. And I just can't.
That's item N on page 104.
Right. Those are my no's.
Thank you. Any other comments on item 3? Mr. Schmerelson.
Yes, I'd like to start with page 95, California Community Foundation, item E, and then go over to page 94, Houlihan Lokey Financial Advisors, item B. So I guess these questions are for Mr. Beutner and whoever else can help me to answer them. So let me just start out by saying that, Mr. Beutner, I am confused. As you know, I've been asking to see the contracts for all the consultants and several individuals who you said are being paid with $3 million that you solicited shortly after taking office. So just last week, you finally disclosed that the actual employer of all these people is the California Community Foundation, and they have no obligation to release the details of those contracts and employees, despite the unprecedented access that these third parties have and continue to have to LAUSD data. You could not tell me, as a trustee of the LAUSD, what arrangements have been made regarding privacy issues, security issues, liability issues, indemnification issues, and other sensitive subjects. So, last Friday, we all received an electronic copy of an MOU between the district and the California Community Foundation that is unsigned by the district, but electronically signed by a lawyer for the foundation. And the date was November the 5th, 2018. So, Mr. Beutner, when was this MOU generated, and how much access to district data and records have been conducted by these consultants and individuals without a contract or without written confirmation of the relationship between the entities? So, in the spirit of full transparency and accountability that you and your supporters speak about so often, I want to ask these questions. Of the 5 initial donors to this effort, the Ballmer Group, California Community Foundation, California Endowment, Eli and Edith Broad Foundation, and the Weingart Foundation, what is the amount contributed by each donor? The second question would be, of the entities being compensated with these philanthropic funds, Ernst & Young, Kitamba, Third Way Solutions, Capri Maddox, and Janelle Erickson, how much is each entity being compensated? And thirdly, do each of these entities have a contract with the California Community Foundation? And if so, can you provide copies to this board?
We can certainly follow up and provide you the information. I don't know off the top of my head, but let me just make sure I understand. So you're looking for the contribution of each of the 5 funders?
Correct.
And the amount and term of the contract with each of the named parties?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm sorry, the third one was?
Each of these entities have a contract with the California Community Foundation? And if so, can you provide copies to the board?
Sure.
Now, here's going to be the biggest problem. I've been asking for information for months, and it's slow a-coming. So I would like to know when I can receive the information requested? You need to give me a time frame, if you would, please.
I think within the next week or 10 days. should be
Okay,
not a
that would
problem.
be fine. That would be fine. Okay? Let me go over, unless anybody has anything? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
no, I don't interrupt. May I ask that I also receive a copy, that we all receive a copy?
It'll be sent to the entire board.
Please, thank you.
Okay, and the last one I have is on page 94, and it's called Houlihan, Loki Financial Advisors. It's item B. So let me just comment and ask you some questions on this, if you would. So I read the biographies of the Houlihan Loki staff assigned to the district, and I didn't see not one person with experience in evaluating public sector entities, let alone school districts. Just as an example, Mr. John Taylor is a valuation expert and a consultant in matters related to minority interest buyouts, bankruptcy proceedings, management efficiencies, damages analysis, and royalty disputes. So here's a question for you, if you could. Can you tell me if Houlihan Loki has provided an ability to pay analysis for other school districts? And if you can you tell me what districts they are?
I would defer that to Dr. Price. He may have that information. I don't know myself.
Okay, so if you don't know, you can email me, but if you do know, you can tell me.
Yes, I'll be glad to go ahead and do that. They did bring in a school expert from Texas, so that works for the firm.
Okay?
So I'll be glad to get
Okay,
that information.
I appreciate
to you
that. If this contract was competitively bid, what were the requirements and how many bidders were there, qualified bidders? Is that also for you, Dr. Price?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is sole source. We did go out and
Mike's over here.
sorry, my mic went out. We did informally ask for a bid from Ernst & Young that was here doing other work, and it came in much higher.
So how many qualified bidders were there? Do you know?
So we did an informal bidding process. It was with Houlihan and Loki, and we talked to Ernst & Young.
Okay. So I'd like to ask some questions about the report that was generated as a result of the contract. Okay? So as a principal of a school and now a board member, I have heard for 20 years that the structural deficit will push this district into insolvency. Why hasn't that happened in the last 20 years? I guess that's the golden question, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. Would you like me to answer now?
Yes, if you could, if you could.
So this wasn't one of the questions that we asked Houlihan and Loki to answer. We wanted them to verify that we, in effect, do have a reoccurring deficit, that we are in financial difficulties and distress. But to get back to your original question of why the third year has not happened, if you look over the last 5 years, what the state has projected that it will be able to give us and what it has then been able to give us once the year approaches has been different. So we have been getting more revenue than what the state has in fact projected earlier on, which we've been very grateful for. Over the last 5 years, the economic situation in the state has been better than anyone could have anticipated. And so we're very grateful for those extra revenues that have come in. We've also taken measures within the school district with fiscal stabilization plans to actually make reductions so that the third year doesn't happen. Just recently, when I came into the district, they put into effect what was previously planned as a part of a fiscal stabilization plan, where there was a 30% cut. It became a 22% cut after all was operationalized. but there have been reductions in fiscal stabilization plans where reductions have been made and efficiencies have been found. So it's a two-pronged approach. It's the state having a much better economic situation over the last 5 or 6 years than we could have hoped for, which is wonderful, and the fact that the district has taken measures to reduce costs and find efficiencies.
So if you can put that in the email too, I mean, I appreciate what you said, but I'd like to read it over and over again, and I think I'll understand it more. So if you can put that in the response also, it would be appreciated, okay? So in the executive summary from their report, it says that the financial projections used to prepare the report came from the district budget staff. If they use the exact same numbers as the district staff, why would we expect different conclusions?
So the job of Houlihan and Loki was to go through and actually verify the trends, verify the sources, verify the revenues and the expenditures. And so they went through all of those different revenues and expenditures to make sure that they were real, and I went ahead and verified those. They saw the trend that we were projecting. They went back and re-verified all of the state projections that were there and saw that we had used the state projections as they are. They went through and looked at our reserves and how those reserves decrease down, and they saw that the methodology used and that the numbers there were in fact real. And so it's a verification process that they went through.
So did they do an analysis of the projections?
Yes, they went through and they looked at the expenses and the revenues, verified expenses and revenues, looked at the methodology used, went through and made sure that we in fact had done a thorough job and that our projections were solid based on the assumptions that we have made in the budget.
So it seems that the district, that's where the district has been wrong over the years. Each year, for the past several years, we've received more funds than have been projected. The language of the report suggests that they saw flaws in the projections, but specifically stayed away from correcting them because they said it was not within our scope of work to prepare independent projections or make adjustments to the projections or their supporting schedules and assumptions.
So they went through and they looked at the various different, for instance, the state may project a certain COLA, cost of living adjustment, in and out year. So they may not, in fact, believe what the state is projecting because we use state projections. They may have a differing opinion, but they have to rely on those as the district has to rely on those projections from the state as part of the projections for the district.
Let me ask you a question about the 3-year rule. So why did Houlihan Loki limit their historical review to 3 years, 2014 to 2017? If you do a 5-year forecast, why would you look only 3 years back?
So all of our numbers are audited each year, and so the significance of going backwards is not as important as what's happening going forward. It's if you've been able to pay your bills in the past, but you need to know if you're going to be able to pay your bills in the future. It's more important if you paid your bills in the past to be able to see what you're able to do in the future. So
they limited their review to the general fund.
yes.
Right? So suppose there was an increase to the cafeteria fund. That could mean savings for the general fund, could it not?
It could, and we're actually working towards that, hoping. Manish Singh is working very hard to try to make that happen.
Okay, so in January, when the governor releases a proposed budget, what should we make of this report if the 2019-20 projected ending balance is greater than $365 million? What should we make of this?
So we always look at the governor's budget that comes out in January, usually January 10th. We look at what the governor is projecting again, if the projections have changed. And we take that into account. We make sure the board knows if there's a change in that. But the budget isn't finished at that point. So we look at that, we take it into account, but we need to wait until the May revise, at which time the governor has more information. Who knows what could happen between January and May this coming year. The stock market has been volatile, and most of the state's revenue depends on personal income tax. So there could be shifts and changes in that as we move forward. So we take it into account what the governor says in January. We can't book it yet. If it's a big increase, that would be great. We look forward to that, but we look towards May as soon as that happens in January.
Okay, let's talk just for a second about increased funding. So the board has taken action to say that their chief legislative activity will be to increase pupil funding to $20,000 a student by 2020. So this is not included in the projection. Is that correct?
No, it is not.
So if this happened, what would the budget look like in 22-23?
Oh, if we were to get to $20,000 per pupil, it would be a wonderful thing for LAUSD students and all students throughout the state.
Okay, I'm almost finished. I'm not trying to tie Dr. McKenna's record. I know, but I'll be fast. I'll be fast. So Houlihan Lokey used an independent charter school enrollment figure of 117,331 for this year. Mr. Cole Gutierrez sent out a report last week saying the number is actually 112,492, or over 15,000 less than the charter school projection. Is the margin of error in these projections what we should use in all of our reports and for numbers in this report?
So in regards to the charter school projection, Houlihan and Lokey used an original projection that came from within LAUSD, within the demographics and charter division. So they did use that as an assumption and moved forward with it. As the numbers change, we update numbers, and Houlihan and Lokey would update numbers if that were to have an effect, but this was a one-time engagement here.
Okay.
So.
We've heard for decades that independent charter schools have huge waiting lists, so we need more charter schools. From Mr. Cole Gutierrez's report, it looks like 75% of the schools are under-enrolled. 168 out of 224 seem to have space for more students. So how do we trust numbers?
So I'm not too sure on, we'd have to talk to Jose Cole Gutierrez on that.
Okay, and the last question,
Yeah.
the very last question. The report says that the district enrollment in 2018-19 is 601,973 students, but that the ADA enrollment is 471,854. That translates to a 78% attendance rate. Does that sound right, or is there something?
No, I think there must be some sort. We did go ahead. We have a declining enrollment issue. We actually declined about 14,500 students this year.
Okay, so I will share this with you so you don't have to memorize all the questions, okay?
Thank you.
And I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Board members, that's tab 3. Are there any other comments on tab 3? And then we're going to go to public comment as they had a 4 o'clock. Anyone?
Yeah, I have a
Yes,
comment.
Mr. Dr. McKenna.
Mr. Schmerelson was very thorough. I had some of the similar concerns, but I wanted to ask about the cost. You said when he asked the question, Mr. Price, Dr. Price, that you had you had a bid of 2 bidders, Ernst & Young and Houlihan and Lokey. But I think the bid was under $250,000. And when you go into, when 250 or lower, you don't have to take it to open bid, is that correct?
That's correct. That's what I said was informal. bid.
It was like an informal bid that you had. I was really concerned